Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Eat. You might notice that my surroundings look a little bit differently. I've hung my diplomas here, and I'm not really sure how I feel about them. I think maybe I just have to get used to it. This was really what made the most sense as far as my desk, and no one's ever coming into this room because I don't see clients in person. So this was really the only way for it to be on display if I wanted it on display. And so I don't know, I have mixed feelings. But maybe I just need to adjust. I did just hang it like an hour ago, so things take time. We are back for another family dinner episode, and I'm really excited for these episodes. I love to just chit chat. I do talk a lot on my stories on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that. And I feel like this is just a better platform for me to just openly discuss what's going on, what I'm loving, what I'm using, what I'm reading, and just take the time to spend 45 minutes kind of exploring that. That's really the intent of this type of episode, these types of episodes. And like I had mentioned in last month's family dinner episode, I love listening to my favorite podcasts and when the hosts spend an episode talking about what they're loving or life updates or whatever the case is. So I'm hopeful that you feel the same. I'm also getting comfortable and figuring out where the best mic placement is for these episodes when I'm on video, because when I'm recording through GarageBand, it doesn't matter where it is because you can't see me. But for something like this, I don't know if the audio's okay so we're just figuring it all out. So I have quite the list to explore today, and I want to spend time hitting on each point. I've been brainstorming this over the course of October, and especially in the last week, as to what I am planning on sharing. And this is essentially kind of how I've done it the past several months that I've been doing these family dinner episodes. It's, a once a month opportunity for me to just check in, share what's going on, and talk about some things that I'm loving, that I'm grateful for, that are coming up. So let's get into it. So first, I just want to take a moment to say why November is my favorite month. I love November so much. I'm so excited to be in November. I just feel as though November is filled with this energy, and maybe I sound crazy for saying this, but I feel like it's filled with a different type of energy than any other month is throughout the rest of the year. It's like this anticipatory energy of the holidays coming up. And while I think we know that the holidays can be very stressful, this anticipation of Thanksgiving and Christmas and just the holidays and it getting colder and just being cozy and, Christmas music and Christmas movies. Elf was on last night, and I was like, oh my goodness, I guess after Halloween, anything goes, right, when it comes to the holidays. But I just love it. I love it. I've always loved it. I also, maybe I'm a little biased. My birthday is the first week in December, so maybe that has played a role in it. But I just have so many fond memories of the holidays growing up. I'm so grateful for them. And it's just so wild how life changes and, not to get into it, but just how like my family dynamic has changed and just how everything really kind of evolves. But then thinking about, my childhood and the traditions we had as a family and, what we did year after year and how much fun it was and how exciting it was. I think a lot of that still exists, or like the memories of that is infused in the month of November, if that makes sense. So I'm just so excited. I love this time of year. It's truly the best time of year, and I hope that you feel the same. A couple updates. I've been doing a little bit more brand partnership work. Not too much has been disclosed yet, but that is underway, and I'm really excited about it. I love to partner with brands that I really believe in. And I just think it's wild because for so many years, I would see these, health and wellness professionals or even content creators, create content for brands. And I was so envious. I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, that's so cool to me. And now I'm getting, messages from brands that I really love or that I would never even imagine that they'd want to work together, So it's really cool. I think brands are looking more in the micro influencer space because obviously I don't have a huge following, but I still have a following that I would consider myself a micro influencer. And even though I don't necessarily consider myself as an influencer, but that's just the term that I'll use here, right? So I think it's just really cool that I have these opportunities now when at one point it just felt like unheard of. It felt like something that I wouldn't get to do. And now I get to do it. So that's underway in the next few weeks, few months. You'll see more of that. And it's just another way for me to share on my platform about things I'm passionate about. Obviously, it's an additional income stream, which is obviously very helpful. And it's just really cool. It gives me a different type of opportunity to create, as opposed to just something that I would, create like a recipe or something of that nature. So it's just something different. So moving into January, the next 6 weeks of the year, I have all of my episodes planned. If we're talking Let's Eat and plans for Let's Eat, and then moving into 2025, I'm going to take the month of January off until the last week of January, and that will be the official debut of season 2 of Let's Eat. Okay. Honestly, I thought about both ends of this. I was like, I could just keep running through because I'm with no shortage of episodes. Like, there's always something I can talk about, and I'm always able to record, and I'm always willing and wanting to record. When I first started this, I considered doing 2 episodes a week because I was like, I love this. I want to do more of this. And a girlfriend of mine who started a podcast before me, she's like, I definitely felt that way too, but don't get ahead of yourself because you want to be able to be paced and have enough content. And so she was right. But I did do, 1 bonus episode. That's what I was doing. So I do 5 episodes a month. So come January, our last episode will debut on December 31st. Pretty coincidental. And then I will release the first episode of season 2 end of January. So all of January, there will be a Let's Eat hiatus, and then we'll refresh for season 2. So this is the first time I'm really announcing that. So you're first to know. But I'll talk more about this in upcoming episodes. This year with the podcast has been the most fun. I'm so grateful to have taken this jump into this space. And I really do feel like this is an area that I want to continue to grow and lean into because I love to talk and I love to share on wellness. And it's just amazing how I had such hesitation, or even I was just like, no, I'm not interested in that. No, I wouldn't do that. And now I've done it for almost a year and I can't imagine not doing it, So I'm just super grateful for it. And, I think part of the reason why I hesitated was because it felt cumbersome and it felt like challenging. But just because it's hard doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And that's something that I'm going to share on in a minute about something else I'm doing. But yes, thank you for tuning in. If you are a regular listener, I appreciate you. If you are a new listener, welcome. And I hope that you will continue to listen into the new year. And the episodes that are upcoming for the remainder of this year, I have a few guests, but a lot of them are there's a couple holiday focused for those of you who want to, feel inspired moving through the holidays, which I know is a big sore spot for a lot of people when we're trying to remain aligned with our health and wellness goals. That can be more challenging for us. And then that's, I think, why there's such a burst of energy come the new year. But what I'm trying to help you avoid is these extremes of kind of falling off the handle during the holidays and then feeling like January you have to go really, really hard. And instead keeping this kind of like even level playing field, I guess is the best word for it. So that moving into January, it's not so extreme. Because I think that's why people are unsuccessful with their New Year's resolutions, is because it's such a black and white, it's such an extreme from how I was behaving during the holidays and then moving into the new year, and it just becomes unsustainable and unrealistic for you. And that's why we aren't able to stick to them, right? That's why we can't see past like the 3rd week in January with these resolutions. So that is something that I want you to feel inspired for, feel motivated for, and then obviously also giving you guidance on how to navigate the holidays more effectively. Speaking of, I am going to be hosting the free Facebook accountability group starting Monday, November 18th, called Whole for the Holidays. That is something I hosted last year and it was so much fun. So I am going to be doing it again this year. I will put the link in the show notes for you if you'd like to join. It's entirely free. You simply just request to join the group. I will approve you. And then that's all. That's all you need to do. And then you can participate as much as you'd like. You can just follow along. But I'm really excited to do this again this year because last year was a lot of fun to be able to share some recipe ideas, inspiration, mental health support, just hacks on better navigating the holidays. And it's really accountability in the sense of, obviously I can only do so much from a accountability perspective when you're not working with me one-on-one, but it's at least a reminder day in, day out of different things you can be doing to support your body. And I think just like getting that notification is a way to kind of keep yourself in check because it's there, you can refer to it. And it's just a resource for anyone who wants to, focus on their health throughout the holidays, not in a restrictive way, not in a counting calories way, none of that, just as a way to say, you know what, I know that if I have this meal before I go to this holiday party, I'm going to make better choices because I know it's loaded with protein, it's loaded with fiber, or I'm going to make this appetizer because I know it's an appetizer that I feel I can turn to if everything on the table is, deep fried or something like that, right? That's not to say you can't still have something like that, but if I bring this appetizer, which is made maybe with more veggies or more protein or whatever the case is, you have that to turn to. And then especially the stress management, self-care energy that we all desperately need through the holidays. I really want to be sure I drive that home as well. So I will put the link there if you're interested, but off on the tangent, I wanted to say, and then also moving into the next 6 weeks, like I said, I have a couple guests lined up, but I also am going to be doing a couple different what I've learned this year episodes. And now that I'm turning 30, different kind of reflective conversations on turning 30 and what this means and what I've learned by 20, all of that good stuff. So I'm just excited because I think the next 6 weeks, it's less like information dense and it's more just like, let's enjoy the last 6 weeks of the year. The guests that I'm having, you're going to love. I am certain of it. And then the other remaining solo episodes will just be me on some of those topics. Okay, so a little bit of a spoiler as to what's coming. And then, like I said, come the new year, we'll finish off the year with some, support and conversation around how to be most successful for your New Year's resolutions with your goals and so forth. And there will be a break. Okay, so thanks so much. I really have loved so much of what this platform has allowed me to do. And I hope that you have too. And as always, I think I've said this 100 times, but if you ever have any episode requests or questions, you know where to find me. My email is always in the show notes. My email's in the show notes. You can DM me on Instagram. You can find me in a number of places. Okay, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We are heading into the month of November, which means Eats by Emily and Whole with Emily turns 6 years old on 11/10. And I'm at a loss for words here. I am feeling so many different emotions around this. I started Eats by Emily. That was formerly the name of my account. And then once I became a business owner, I switched over to Whole with Emily. I started Eats by Emily because I asked a friend of mine, she was a coworker at the time, if I started sharing the meals that I make, would you care? I think those are my exact words. Would you care? Would you follow along? And she said, yeah, absolutely. So one Saturday, I think it was, I made my account and I just started. Now, I think the biggest thing about who I was then and who I am now, I mean, there's a number of different things outside of just like I was 23 and now I'm going to be 30, right? Because this is right before my 24th birthday. What I had plans for at that age and what I'm doing now, it's just incredible to look at the journey. And there's a lot of followers of mine who have been following me since that second week of Eats by Emily. And it's just, sometimes I'll go back because I'm so grateful that Instagram allows me to look at all of my past stories, my past posts. I mean, everything's on there. Okay, knock on wood, because if I lost that, I would be very sad. And to just see like the person that I was and what I would share, it's just a whole, 6 years of a diary, essentially, to some extent, right? Where I can just see the progression, right? Because I obviously experienced it. And of course, for me, this was just me living life. But if I'm able to like look back at that and see how I was growing and I was learning, and it's just, I don't know. It's just, I'm trying to find the right word for it, but I just can't. So I hope that you'll be okay with me just saying it's just because it's just, I don't know. And I'm so grateful for it. Allow me to have this moment. I'm so grateful for it because I would not be doing what I'm doing now if it was not for this platform. Like, this platform, Instagram, has been the foundation upon which everything I do now exists. Everything. The podcast, my business, every single thing that I do now is a byproduct of the Instagram, right? And that is just outrageous for me to think about, because had I not made that choice, who knows where I would have ended up, right? But at the time, what was I doing at that time? I just started grad school. I graduated Rutgers in the spring, and then I started grad school that fall. It was fresh into grad school, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I think at the time I thought I was going to go into eating disorder therapy, eating disorder care. And I just did it because I wanted to. And I started my holistic health coaching certification at the same time. And now it's just 6 years later. And the personal growth has been substantial. But for the people who have been there and have been watching me, even if it's been a year or 3 years or 4, however long if you were a follower of mine, if you're not, go ahead and follow me. But just the journey and me sharing my day to day, and it's just, and it's so much fun for me. It is so much fun for me to share and to inform and to educate. Like, that is what's so important to me, is that I'm providing free value every single day about ways that you can support your health and the ways that I do, right? And the ways that I support my health. And that's what I want to continue to do, right? Like, that's what I want to continue to do. I want to continue to offer this and utilize it as a space to share. And even when I transitioned to my business, it was really hard for me, and it still is hard for me, to almost advertise my business, because I felt very uncomfortable at the thought of, my platform becoming something I was looking to make money off of versus just what I've always known and what I've always done, which is just share openly and share freely without the intention of it becoming something where I'd make money from it, right? So even to this day, I'm very cautious of that, because that's not ever what I want my Instagram to be, is a place for me to feel like I'm pushing coaching on people, or that you have to work with me now. I'm going to have to charge you for this free information now. That is never going to be the case. I will always share. I will always openly discuss topics that are important to me, that are relevant to the times that come up in my discussions with clients, or that I learn about. That is what's most important, because I know I've brought a lot of value to the people who have followed me, and I never want that to be something that I don't do. Like, that is what's most important to me, no matter what. And so, even like I've said, like with brand partnerships and so forth, like really still being authentic in that is very important to me. But yeah, 6 years. 6 years, and 6 more years to go. Like, so many more years ahead, as long as this platform exists. So thank you to everyone who has supported me and followed me. It is truly, and I am not being dramatic with this, it has changed my entire life. I hope you can see that this is where I'm meant to be, and this is what I'm meant to do, given my passion and how much I show up. And I think back, my sister used to tell me, like, Emily, you need to you need to show your face. Like, you need to talk to your followers on your Instagram stories. Like, you need to, at the time I was literally just sharing recipes. And your girl at the time living at home was 23. I would go out and buy food every day. I swear to God, I would go to ShopRite most days to get ingredients for a new recipe so I could share it. That's how committed I was to this. And that's what I thought I had to do, right? Now, of course, that's not what I do now. I do less recipes. I do more informative, more educational, but it's just amazing to think about. And honestly, my definition of healthy then is so much different than what it is now. I didn't really know as much as I do now, but yeah, that just was a lot of rambling and a lot of, kind of incomplete sentences, but I just want to say once again, thank you for being a supporter of mine. It means the world to me. I love what I do. I hope you can see that. And, here's to another 6 years, of Whole with Emily and learning and growing and exploring and becoming our healthier, more, whole selves in mind and body. That's what's most important to me. So moving on, after I got all of that out of my system, I am going to give you a date because you all need to hold me accountable to my Pilates certification, which I have not openly talked about on social media yet. So this is just our little secret if you are a Let's Eat listener, okay? I said December 8th, my Pilates certification will be complete. I've been chipping away at it. I've been attending classes, right? Like there's not enough hours in the day, and I don't find that to be something that I would put before work related tasks. So by time I get to the end of the day, I don't want to be looking at my screen, which is where my certification is. I want to be reading a hardcover book, or I want to be sleeping. Okay. So it's just been a little bit of a, when I can get to it type of thing. And so I'm putting this on the front burner, and I'm going to commit to it. And I'm going to tell you that by December 8th, that's a Monday, I will have it complete. Now, once I have it complete, that doesn't necessarily mean, okay, that's it, right? That will then mean I start to more formally train. For those of you who don't know, I'm gonna start teaching at my local Pilates studio. So in the interim, as I complete it, and then thereafter, I'm going to start training and cultivating that skill set, because that's a whole different ballgame. I can complete the certification and know all the anatomy and all the moves and whatnot, but it's actually teaching that I need to also learn how to do. So that will be something else that I am going to be investing in, which this experience in total is brand new to me. And I kind of said this before, when it comes to something new or something hard rather, it can be easy for us to just abandon ship. And I think this is very relevant to a health journey, very, very relevant as it relates to health. A lot of times when it's new or when it feels hard, we just abandon ship, or we say this isn't for me, right? And this is kind of where I've been, where learning the anatomy and the muscle groups is very new to me. This is not something I ever learned in school. I wasn't required to learn it in school. So it was just kind of something I could sail by and I didn't have to worry about. I even took, I think I've mentioned, a biology class, but it was for non-science majors. So it was kind of just, here's the class so that you can say you took it, but we're not going to expect much from you, right? So this has been a journey. It's been a challenge, but it's exciting to me to know I'm putting myself in a position that's challenging, that's new, that's uncharted for me. And I can look back on the other side and say, wow, I did that. Like, that's really cool. And I have been, every conversation that I've had with the Pilates studio owner, I say to her all the time, I say, when I first started bartending, okay, I started bartending when I was 18, just going into 19, okay? And I remember thinking, this is so hard. This is so hard. How am I going to do this? How am I supposed to learn this? I don't know anything at all. And now I look back 11 years later and I could do it with my eyes closed. And I felt the same way as a therapist. I felt the same exact way. Going into my work as a therapist while I was trained, it still felt so new. It felt very, imposter syndrome, right? Esque. There was a lot of that newness that, oh, this feels hard, but you get through it, right? If you apply yourself, if you repeat it, if you commit to it. And that's exactly how I'm looking at this situation, that yeah, it's hard right now and it's challenging because it's new, but give it 6 months, give it a year, and you'll look back and be like, wait, what were you so worked up about? Yes, it was hard at the time because it was new, but look how far you've come. And that's really what I felt. And every time I've done something new since I started bartending, because that was like the real, I mean, I probably could draw from other experiences that I felt similarly, but that is like I don't want to say it's like my greatest success story, because I'm sure there's other things that I've been successful at, like getting a master's degree and I don't know, like other things that I felt were hard. But I think the bartending experience and the story of that is so much proof that you could literally know nothing at all and then become so competent in something. Now, I'm not the perfect bartender. I still have a lot to learn. I'm not a mixologist by any means, but I've learned so much and I've worked so much in this space that the person I was at 18, 19 years old, walking behind the bar and not knowing a single thing, is not the person that I am anymore. Not just in the sense of I've now grown 10 years, right? I've aged 10 years, but also just in terms of, literally not knowing anything at all to feeling like I know majority and being confident and being able to train others. That's another thing. I train all of our most of our new bartenders, right? So that is another thing. I can train people to do it now versus when I first started and I knew nothing. So that is something that I know, like I said, it's not like a profound feat in life, but I always think about that when I start something new because I felt this way at one time and I pushed past it and I learned. And here I am. And honestly, I credit bartending to a lot of friendships in my life, to relationships I've made, to my social skills, my ability to work with people. I mean, I accredit my time in the restaurant industry, but especially in bartending, to a lot of who I am. And that sounds like I said, that kind of sounds silly, but it's so true. It is so true. I've worked with people on a level that a lot of people have not worked with people on, right? And that has helped me as a mental health professional. That has helped me in my space, in my business. So it's just kind of interesting. It's interesting to think about that. Something that once terrified me now is something that, no fear. Not one bit. Not one bit having fear cutting someone off. Not one bit of fear, not knowing a drink and having to look it up. Not fear, having a full bar, having a busy bar and feeling like I can't keep up. None of that. But Emily at 18, terrified of that, right? So I'm sorry to keep going on about this, but this is just the point I'm trying to make with Pilates. I know that it can be scary and you can keep going. And that is the biggest piece of wisdom that I can give you moving into 2025. If you're looking at something new or you have a goal, that is the best advice I can give you. It's called a dialectic. It's when two opposites exist at the same time. So something can be scary, something can be intimidating, something can be new, something can be challenging, and you can do it anyways. Okay? That is my advice to you. So December 8th, someone check in on me on December 8th, okay? Because I'm determined to finish out my certification. I didn't tell you what I'm drinking. I have just plain old water. Nothing beats plain old water or lemon water. Lemon water is pretty good. And then I also have a matcha, which it's pushing 12 o'clock. So I should probably finish that up. Speaking of doing hard things, I am in the midst of looking into going back to school in the spring. I have been kind of flirting with this idea for a while. I mean, I've been flirting with this idea since I graduated grad school. But for real this time, I'm looking into becoming a functional lab practitioner, functional diagnostic practitioner. There's a number of different names. But essentially, this would authorize me to order labs, which I have found to be the missing piece to the work that I do. I love the work that I do. I love working with clients. I love helping clients. I love educating them. I love supporting them. But I feel like I'm getting to a point in my career where, for the longevity of what I'm trying to do and to really meet clients at a deeper level, I want to be able to administer and order functional labs for them. I have really dipped my toe in understanding blood work from like a Western healthcare perspective. So I can look at someone's blood work and maybe just understand it a little bit, be able to talk to them about it. And that, that was all self study, self education, right? None of my schooling taught me that. But what I've really come to realize is I can't really help someone to the depth, right? Understanding the root necessarily, okay, not always, but in a lot of cases, without having that information that's underneath the surface of hormonal imbalances, of gut dysfunction, of HbA access dysfunction, right? Like there's a number of different issues that can be addressed with proper testing. And the only way for me to understand that is to have them go get functional labs from someone, which I do partner with an individual who's local to me, and I've been sending clients his way because he has access to these tests. And so I'm like, here's a client, here's a client, here's a client. But it's been great, right? Because I help them better understand and get that next level support. I, however, would love to be able to do that. And I'm in this for the long haul. If you haven't noticed, I'm in this forever. And so for me, going back to school is just inevitable. And, I'm going to do this program, whatever one I decide to go with. And then I'm sure in another year, I'll be back in school for something else, right? I just want to be as well-rounded as I can. Not to mention I am a forever student and I love being in school and I love learning, and that plays into it. But being a good practitioner, being an effective practitioner means continuing to sharpen your skill set. Now, I have continuing education requirements. So for all of my certifications, I have to obviously invest in courses to, learn more and whatnot. But I think for the rest of my life, I'll just continue to kind of pave the way of what I foresee as being the next steps for my business. And a lot of that requires me to continually educate me, right? As that unfolds, as that path unfolds. Now I'm deciding that for myself because that's why I'm doing this. It's because I am able to decide who I work with, what I do when I work with them. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur and being in business with myself, for myself, is having that freedom. Now there's a lot of difficulty that comes with being an entrepreneur and owning your own business. Okay. So I don't want to glorify it as it being this fabulous all the time. Your girl is learning. And that is, okay, let me just shout that out. I established my LLC in 2021. And I'm still moving and grooving. Okay. How I did this, I don't know. I really don't know. I just had such a drive for this, and I still obviously do, that I knew that this was what I wanted to do. But yeah, doing hard things is hard. Doing hard things is hard, but it's so worthwhile. So worthwhile. And I hope that if you're, confronting something hard in your life, you're confronting something challenging, that this comes at the right time for you. Okay? Because maybe you needed to hear this. But yeah, that is my plan. Come the spring, I am looking into different programs, deciding what's the right fit, what makes the right sense financially. But I'm hopeful to go back to school and commit to, really reapplying myself and maybe just reconfiguring my work for a little while so I can really focus on that, because I don't want this to be like a long-winded thing, right? I want to apply myself. I want to be back in school like I was when I was, in my bachelor's, my master's, where, that's my primary focus. Obviously, that's not going to pay the bills, but I'm still going to be working. But at the same time, I want to be able to really apply, because when I say that anatomy and so forth is hard, I know that going into this space is going to be that much harder because of the nature of the work that it is, right? Very science heavy, very intricate, right? Understanding, hormonal dynamics and just understanding the body and root causes. All of that is something I want to know like the back of my hand. Now, I have preliminary knowledge, right? I know a lot as it is, but really being able to be, a functional practitioner requires so much greater depth, because everyone is so individual, and understanding how everything impacts each other. And yeah, there's just a lot to know. And so I really want to be sure I apply myself in the fullest way so that I am best prepared. And that's going to require me to step back from a couple of my other responsibilities in order to do that, because there's just so much on my plate right now. So that is my plan come the start of 2025. Obviously we have 6 weeks left of this year, but I'm hopeful in the next week or two, I will identify the program that I feel most aligned with. And I'm still kind of working that out and then be able to get started come the new year and, hopefully have the first few months to really dive into it so that come mid 2025, I'm able to start utilizing it. So that's the plan. That's the plan. The last thing that I want to talk about before I get into what I'm loving is just this concept of slowing down. This morning, I didn't set an alarm and I wanted to just let myself sleep. Okay, that's not true. I did set an alarm, but I didn't feel like I had to immediately get up at the alarm, right? And I don't have a day in my week where I feel like I can do that. And I think we all deserve that type of day. Sundays are usually my day to reset. Today, for example, is a day for me. I have a lot of cleaning in my house to do. I'll be completely honest. I have a lot of cleaning that I need to do. And this is the only work-related thing that I'm doing. I don't even consider this work. This is fun for me. But I have a lot of cleaning to do, and I know that this is the day to do it. Tomorrow, I have to go to the vet with Lou. She's kind of a hot mess right now. I have clients. I just have a lot once the week starts, and Sundays are really my only day to kind of reset and get my head on straight, or just to sit and to read and to slow down, right? Which I also want to do, and I might do. I should do, because that's what a rest day is for. That's what I don't work out usually on Sundays. So I say this now, but I am working a couple Sundays this month and December. However, I want to make more time for slowing down. I know that sounds really cliche, but I just want to make more time to read, to just be. I can't tell you the absolute joy that I feel after work on Saturdays, because for those of you who don't know, I work at the restaurant on Saturdays. Saturday nights, with or without plans. But just knowing when I'm in my jammies and I'm on the couch or reading or watching something on TV. Last night I watched Elf. Being able to just go to bed and know that Sunday is just mine. So I was just kicked out of my recording because I ran out of storage on my computer, which is the story of my life lately. So I'm back now. That was probably not much of a hiatus for you, but it was for me. I had to go delete a bunch of stuff. I hooked up my external hard drive, so we're back in business. But that was scary for a sec. I thought I was going to have to re-record everything. Anyways, slowing down, really taking the time to just be. And like I said, ever since I started my business, I think I've just been go, 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 where every minute of the day I feel like I should be doing something for it, which is full transparency. I think that's where I left off in the episode. Full transparency, that's been a big issue for me, is stopping and just being and being a human, right? And just being, or being with friends and not feeling like I should be, doing something for my business. And so I didn't think I'd ever feel this way necessarily. I think that's part of the reason why I love it so much, is because I can constantly build and learn and grow and expand, but I also need to be a human being. So not only is this a goal for me over the next couple weeks, but also as I move into this new decade, right? Start really focusing on these practices more intentionally, making them more of a part of my daily routine, as opposed to feeling like I constantly need to be on, or I constantly need to be doing something to build or to advertise or to, attract or whatever it is, when, I need to also live life, and I also need to give myself time to disconnect. So part of my goal today is, after I'm done recording, I'm going to go clean, and then I'm going to give myself the chance to just be. Okay, so that's a big part of the next couple weeks. Full transparency, this is something that I struggle with. So I want to be sure that I'm openly discussing it, because it's important. All right, so what am I loving? Let's talk about it. So I just actually bought my first, or I guess that's maybe my second half gallon of raw milk. I had to meet my mom last week to drop off Lou, because Lou spent the week at my mom's, and I passed this farm stand on the way home going through Pennsylvania, which in New Jersey, you can't legally buy raw milk. I mean, there's certain areas and places you can get it and it's, they kind of slip through the cracks, or they advertise it as something else or whatever it is. But I saw it on the sign, local raw milk. So I, what's it called? Like, what am I looking for? Like one of these with my wheel, whatever that verb is. And I pulled over and I got myself some raw milk, and I've been making these raw milk lattes, which after I am done here, I'm going to go make one because it's so good. It is decaf espresso, which I did just get an espresso. I know that there's a little bit of controversy now around the pods with espresso. I know with Keurigs too. But the Keurigs, I know specifically when you are using the plastic K-cups, hot water is being heated through the plastic, which is then leaching into your coffee. Not so good. I personally really like the stainless steel K-cup. I have a Keurig as well, like a simple model. And so I have a stainless steel, reusable one that I like to use. So I do recommend that if you are someone who uses their K-cups or Keurig every single day. Find one on Amazon. They're stainless steel, and they're so easy to just add your own grinds to them. And it's more affordable. Buying the K-cups are definitely more expensive than just buying some ground coffee and then making it yourself. So that would be my suggestion there. The Nespresso, I do have a reusable stainless steel pod. I just have not used it yet. So this is, I think, after the fact. I had already bought some sleeves of decaf espresso, which I don't really care for the caffeine part of coffee. I just love the taste of coffee. So I bought these decaf because I was like, well, I don't care. I'm not using this as a caffeine boost. I'm using this because I want the taste of it. So I've been doing an espresso, a decaf Nespresso pod. My Shilajit, which I shared on one of my other podcast episodes, which is a live mineral resin powerhouse of nutrition. And I've been having a hard time incorporating it because it doesn't taste the best, but I found it to be really well masked in espresso. So I'm putting that in the espresso. And right now, Symbiotica is having a 25% off sale for Black Friday, I guess through the month of November. So please take a look at the link in my bio if you want to try something by Symbiotica. I just realized I have the opportunity to share on that. And then I've been doing a scoop of vanilla bone broth protein, and I've been frothing that together with ice. And I done like a couple of supplements by Symbiotica in it, whether it's the magnesium or the Golden Mind supplement, which is good for focus and cognition and mood stability throughout the day. And then I've been doing ice and then raw milk. And it's so good. Doesn't need any sweetener because the protein powder is sweetened. It's plenty sweet, and it's so freaking good. And it's a powerhouse latte. Okay, it's got all sorts of benefits to it. So that has been my go-to. I'm definitely going to go make one after this. And yeah, check it out if you're interested. If you have espresso, or even you can just use coffee. But something new that I've been incorporating on a daily basis, it's about 13 grams of protein in it, plus the protein from the raw milk. But I just want to put it out there. There's a lot of controversy behind raw milk. And I actually got kind of attacked on TikTok for talking about raw milk, which honestly, I really don't have too much experience with it to really speak openly, whereas there's a lot of people who are really big proponents for it. Personally, I don't necessarily love the taste of milk. It's something I used to drink all the time growing up. And now I think I have mixed feelings because I know that there's a lot of controversy around milk and dairy in the wellness space. It's funny, 6 years ago, Eats by Emily would have said, dairy's the devil, because I was your tried and true dairy-free girly, and I was using all the dairy-free products and creamers and alternatives with the ingredients being right, but it was dairy-free, so I could use it, right? So it's just amazing how far I've come. But anyways, I don't feel strongly either way. Right? To each their own. Everyone needs to find what works for them. I find that people who choose higher quality dairy, raw dairy, even milk from A2 cows, which if you're interested, look up A1 versus A2 cows. You'll learn a lot. Can tolerate dairy better than if you're having like a conventionally created slice of American cheese, right? Which is American cheese even dairy? I don't know, because it's loaded with synthetic ingredients, okay? Well, that's why it's called American cheese, right? It's very standard American. But I think when it comes to raw milk, I was just curious. I've just been making my own cashew milk, or I've been doing coconut milk, but from a nutritional standpoint, raw milk definitely surpasses nutritional value. Every milk or type of milk is different. Now, some of the more processed non-dairy milks, you're looking at carrageenan, which is not so great, not great at all. Guar gums, sweeteners, oils. I mean, oat milk is 89% oil. Don't quote me on that statistic, but that's just for dramatic effect, right? Like, it's a lot of oil. And I used to be an oat milk drinker too, but Oatly is more oil than it is oats. It's more oil than it is water, I would say. Okay, that's why it tastes so good. So when it comes to milk, you have to find what works best for you. If it's a non-dairy milk, if it's a dairy milk, depending on what your preference is and what you tolerate. I always suggest quality no matter what you're choosing. But when it comes to raw milk, the value of it, it's the least processed of the milks, right? It's the closest to the cow that you could essentially get. And so the nutrition that's there, because it hasn't been heated, right? Which was something that they did during the Industrial Revolution or around that time to basically mass produce milk and to, increase the production of it and, to be able to treat cows a certain way, right? Like, there's a number of contributing factors as to why they started to process milk the way that they do. And it used to just be called milk. I listened to this on a podcast. It's like, it was never raw milk. It was just milk. That was just what you bought. You just bought milk. Now that we have a different type of milk that's pasteurized, we call it raw milk. And now it's under all the scrutiny for being problematic. But there's a lot of nutrition there. And as long as you're getting it from a reliable source, I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a great addition to your routine if you're someone who can tolerate it, if you want to incorporate milk. Like I said, I used to drink a lot of milk when I was younger. And so drinking this now, it's like, whoa, it's like a blast from the past, honestly, because it just reminds me of how much milk I used to drink as a kid. Certainly didn't drink raw milk. But I don't know, it's just interesting because people are getting so up in arms and so heated about the controversy with raw milk. And, there's a lot of brands actually there's one brand that comes to mind, and I think maybe their brand name is Raw. I don't know exactly. But it comes to mind, and they're, big proponents, raw cheese, raw milk, all of the raw options, raw dairy. We're so up in arms about this, but we don't care about other issues in our food supply, in our food system. It's like raw milk is the least of our worries, okay, in comparison to everything else that's going on. So let's all settle down, okay? Let's simmer down. So you definitely can have your own opinion. I would do some reading on it and just learn a little bit more. I mean, I read a book one time and it was, can I see it? Is it in my, I can't see it. I was going to say, I'll point to it. It was, Deep Nutrition. And the author states milk is one of the most nourishing things that you can consume if you can get your hands on a quality milk. Right? Now, there's proponents who would absolutely feel fervently otherwise, okay? But you just have to find what works for you. If it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. You don't need raw milk to be healthy. But we also shouldn't be so fearful of it when it's something that actually has a lot of nutrition to it and can be really beneficial. So that's my thought on that. My morning rituals have kind of taken the back seat the past few weeks, and I really want to get back to that. So that includes gratitude and morning journaling, meditation, some movement. Now that Lou is back, I'll be much more active. I feel like I wasn't taking any walks this week because I didn't have her. I'm like, oh my God, this is tragic. I haven't been outside all day long, So get yourself a golden retriever if you feel like you need to get outside more. You need to take more walks. Simple investment, right? Simple investment. So I really want to get back to that because that really sets the tone for my day. And I miss that. I miss that kind of solid base that I allowed myself to have without any, distraction, because that was huge, right? I want to be sure I'm like committed to it and it's not something I'm wavering with because I have been, and it makes a big difference. What I'm reading, let's talk about it. So Metabolical is the book that I am fervently moving through. It is by Robert Lustig, I believe is his last name. And I was inspired to read it because of reading Good Energy by Casey Means, which I don't shut up about this book, but I really wanted to learn more about metabolic health. And so I've been doing this series on Instagram about metabolic health. And so I wanted to to continue to, round out my knowledge of it. So I've been really loving it. It's definitely more science-based, more science-heavy, but I've really enjoyed it. I'm making my way through. I've also been reading The Hormone Shift. This is by Dr. Taz. I'm not going to try to tackle her last name, but if you just Google Dr. Taz, she'll come up, okay? It starts with a B, but I think it's like Bahatia or Bahia. I'm not sure. Dr. Taz. And it's really all about the different phases of hormonal changes that women navigate in their lifetime, which I personally think is the biggest hole in women's healthcare, is guidance and support through all of these hormonal shifts: PMS, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, right? All of these areas of our lives as women that our healthcare simply does not know anything about. And I'll say that. I will say that with such confidence, because you go to your doctor and say, I have PMS, I have cramps, I have bloating, I have this, that, and the other thing. Here's birth control. You go to your gynecologist during perimenopause, menopause, and they tell you this is just a part of getting older. And I am working with several women right now who are either perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal. And they are mind blown when I teach them anything about how they can be supporting their bodies, what is going on in their bodies, and how they can address it more holistically. And it's just wild to me that this is so devoid of support when it comes to our healthcare. Our healthcare does not support women in this area. And when I say in this area, when I say PMS to even like pregnancy and postpartum, hormonally, what's going on there, perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal, that is the entirety of a woman's life. A woman is always in one of those stages, okay? Give or take, majority of her life, right? So you need to tell me why this is not something that we are more educated on, or why we don't teach more on this, because women are not getting answers. They're suffering. I mean, how many adolescents and young adults and young women are struggling with painful PMS? And that is a surefire sign that something is wrong within the body. And their only knee-jerk reaction to that is, here's a prescription for birth control. And we are continuing to learn the harmful side effects, the impact that birth control can have, the carcinogenic nature of birth control. And yet these women are not taught that. They think that this is the solution, when in reality, the underlying discomfort, or the underlying dysfunction rather, persists, right? And the dysfunction is still there. The inflammation is still there. The birth control is meant to mask that, or they don't have symptoms around their periods. And then what happens, right? We're just getting sicker as a result of that, and nothing's ever being solved. And then, not to mention, when women are going off of birth control, they're not given the guidance of how to support their liver, how to support their gut, right? As a result of being on this birth control, what that means, addressing nutritional deficiencies, right? It's really a shame. And we have such an epidemic of estrogen dominance. We have such an epidemic of, painful PMS, infertility, and all of these issues are manifestations of the fact that our health is a mess and our healthcare system's not doing anything to help. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting heated about this, but it really just grinds my gears, especially being a female of childbearing years. Okay. And knowing that when I do decide to move forward with getting pregnant and, having to work so closely with an OBGYN or, our healthcare system in order to have a child, right? Knowing that there's really no guidance on how to support our bodies nutritionally through, as like in terms of prenatal, while pregnant, post-care, right? Postnatal care, right? Like all of these important areas. I mean, the book that I was referring to before, Deep Nutrition, touches on how problematic it is for women who are pregnant to not understand how to nourish properly when they're literally developing a human. I'm going to cut myself off, okay? But it's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. So this has been a really great read. It's not super dense. It's a very easy read. It explores things very fluently and very comfortably. So I've really appreciated it because it's helped me at least understand the progression a little bit more, because this isn't something I necessarily learned a whole lot about in my coaching. And I'm going to start the book Brain Energy, I think, today. I'm excited. It's all about metabolic health and mental health. Dr. Chris Palmer was someone I was introduced to a couple months ago, and now I'm really excited to get into his book. So those are just a couple that I've been prioritizing. You guys know I'm always knee deep in like 6 books at a time. I'm surrounded by books. So there are books that are also in the midst of that rotation. I'm just not going to tell you about them. I told you about them last month. I'm still working on all of them. I don't think I finished any of them, okay, because I'm just reading too many. So bear with me. Next, I want to dive into 2 topics. I was going to do 3, but let's focus on 2 because I don't want this episode to be super, super, super long. Let's talk about the carnivore diet briefly, okay? There's been a lot of hype around the carnivore diet and its efficacy for weight loss, and, you know, people's lives have been transformed because of it. And it's interesting, right? These dietary trends that come up that suddenly they're now, you know, all that, and everyone's, you know, trying it out and seeing how they feel. And I think there's a couple of reasons why people are having success on this. When we are choosing the carnivore diet, we're looking at animal-based food, okay? We're loading up on animal-based food. Now, when you think about it, if you are switching from an ultra-processed food diet, which we could say that maybe there's people who are choosing an ultra-processed food diet, which is largely carbohydrate, that's impacting your metabolic health above and beyond, right? When you're loading up on carb-dense food all day long and you're missing protein and fiber and healthy fats, right? You're noticeably going to impact the way you feel. It's noticeably going to impact the way you feel. You're going to have immediate term and long-term impacts of that on your health and how you feel. If you're choosing the carnivore diet, right? Eggs, meat, whatever that might look like for you, you are giving your body so much protein and healthy fat, we could say, and even further, you're giving it nutrition, okay? Because these foods are nutrient dense. Meat, nutrient dense. Eggs, nutrient dense, right? Whatever other, you know, carnivore options you want to reach for, okay? Whether it's butter or bacon or whatever. These are nutrient dense, and not only that, they are protein rich and typically healthy fat rich. Right? Fat rich. We'll say fat rich. So from a simple perspective, of course, you're going to feel better when you are giving your body the most satisfying macronutrient along with nutrition that you probably were not getting from eating a high carb diet, eating processed foods. You're switching to a diet that is largely meat. Protein's the most satisfying macronutrient. And you also have lots of nutrition in these foods. Eggs have all 8 B vitamins, okay? You know, a high quality meat or having a steak of some kind. I mean, there's so much nutritional density there. Iron, right? There's so much value to it. So that's number 1. Like right off the bat, that's where I see the benefit, is why people feel good, is because they're letting go of all the carbs and they're focusing on protein and fat. And they're getting all that nutrition. Secondly, from a metabolic health perspective, this is very similar to what I was just saying. Their blood sugar is like this. Now, maybe it's a little bit, right? But with all the carbs, right, that's where we see the spikes and the crashes. But when it comes to a carnivore diet, protein is going to stabilize that. Fat is going to stabilize that, right? So we're going to see sustained energy, mood, clarity, because we know how much of an impact that has on your metabolic health and how you feel, right? So if you are choosing foods that are predominantly protein and fat, you're going to see stability there, as opposed to spikes and crashes, which is going to impact your mental and your physical health and how you feel. Mood, energy, focus, sleep, all the above. Now, those are just 2 simplified reasons as to why I think it's beneficial. From a weight loss perspective, like I said, protein is the most satisfying macronutrient. And so from any angle, when it comes to weight loss, you want to focus on protein because your body physically does not have the capability of over consuming protein. Like it knows when to stop. Whereas with carbs, it's much easier to just kind of go and eat and eat and eat. So from a weight loss perspective, that does make sense. Same with fat, right? We need healthy fat. We need the protein. That makes sense. However, the downfall here is I don't feel it's sustainable. And I'm such a fiber fan. I'm such a big fan of fiber. And your poor digestion is missing out on that fiber. And I think that that's problematic. I'm such a big believer in a plant forward diet, but I also love the ancestral diet. I think that's really where I fall, is kind of at the merging of those two. And without the fiber, you're missing out on that essential part of a healthy diet. And I think that's really a problem. So that's kind of where I see a deficit. I'm sure there's a number of other, arguments that I could find for and against it, but those are the ones that first. Once again, I was booted out of my recording. This is a complicated, time-consuming recording that's happening right now. So let's make it through. Let's finish out strong. So those are my few thoughts on the carnivore diet. I think, we're just not informed enough about these trends. And I always think that doing something like this with someone who can give you a little bit more perspective on it might be something I'd recommend. I think people are jumping on this bandwagon because they're seeing an impact on, whether it's their blood work or their weight loss plan or whatever the case is. But I think that there is some consideration to be made, from both perspectives as to why it would be beneficial and why it might not be. And everyone's so different. So I think that's important to consider too. All right, the last thing I want to talk about, and I will keep it brief, is kind of an interesting position that I have been in since I got my master's, I would say, but even more recently, there's been some things that have come up that I want to kind of explore. I'm not going to be specific about it, but I just want to kind of talk about the nature of it. And I see this online, and I've started to record myself talking about this on Instagram multiple times, but I just don't think I say it eloquently enough. So I want to use this space to just kind of put it out there and explain where my thoughts are at, because it does take a little bit of explanation to fully understand it. And I don't want to be insensitive, right? So this has to do with, where do we stand on this spectrum of acknowledging the reality of disordered eating and eating disorders, and also prioritizing health? The reason that this has come up for me so many times is because I worked in an eating disorder focused private practice as an intern. And that was the area of mental health I had intended on entering. And also now I focus more on the health side of things when it comes to wellness. And I'm more interested in being intentional about what foods we're choosing to nourish your mind and body. But I want to shed light on where these two approaches conflict. If somebody who is navigating an eating disorder or has a history of disordered eating currently, past, whatever the case is, it is very challenging for someone to sit there and say, okay, I should eat these foods and I should stay away from those foods. And this is not in like a restrictive way. This is more just about, I want to choose the foods that are going to nourish me and that are going to help me feel good and give my body what it needs to optimally function. And that would include the obvious foods, right? That that I'm always talking about and I'm prioritizing, I'm promoting, I'm, endorsing, and so forth. But from someone who has a history of eating disorders or disordered eating, that can feel very triggering for them. Because if you're saying, even if you have their best interest, if you are saying, and this doesn't come from a disordered eating standpoint, doesn't have to do with the root of the disordered eating. It has to do with, I want to prioritize my health. It can feel very triggering for someone because it does kind of come across as being restriction. All right, I hope that you're following me. If you're saying, don't eat sugar, don't eat fried foods, only eat real whole foods, that can be really hard and challenging for someone who has a history of ED. I think that we can all agree on that. However, at which point do we completely disconnect from the reality that is these foods have research behind them and evidence behind them to support the fact that they are problematic to our health? Sugar, processed, ultra-processed foods, refined oils, things of that nature, right? Inflammatory foods. At which point do we say, okay, but what is this doing? Is this a disservice to our health? if we are not also acknowledging the realities of these foods. And where do we find a space in between that's comfortable? And where do we find a space in between that is cognizant of those who struggle in this arena from a mental health perspective, and also still stand by the fact that these foods are harmful? There's a lot of food freedom, anti-diet, body positivity, beauty at every size, energy that our culture likes to promote, or culture promotes. Now, I fall somewhere in the middle because I come from both spheres. I come from, this is like a Venn diagram, right? That's what it's called with the circles. I come from both sides. I come from the camp of, eating disorders and disordered eating and all that entails. But more recently, I now come from the camp of understanding what it is that we're putting in our bodies and being more mindful of it, being more aware of it, right? And choosing not to choose foods that are sugar rich, that are nutrient devoid, that are ultra processed. But it puts me as a practitioner, but it also puts everyone else in a very challenging spot. Like, where do we draw that line? I had come across an incident where this was brought to my attention, and it made me really start thinking, how do we navigate this more effectively? How do we navigate this in a way where we're able to honor and be sensitive to the fact that there is a very real epidemic that exists within the world of disordered eating and eating disorders, while also being honest with the fact that we have to limit our consumption of these foods in order to better support our mental health, in order to better support our physical health? And how do we tread that? How do we approach that cautiously without being too cautious? Because it has to be said, it has to be acknowledged that these foods are harmful in certain ways, but we also need to be sensitive to the realities of mental health and the severity that is eating disorders like anorexia, bulimia, and so forth, right? So I just wanted to put that out there. I hope that I explained that properly, but this is a very tough position to be in for me, right? Because I understand both sides. I'm trained in both sides. And in order to be, cognizant of both, it's a dynamic that I have yet to understand. I don't think I ever will, because I think everyone's so individual. But there's a person that I follow on Instagram, and she's very fervently about the more health side, right? Avoiding things that are unhealthy and less nutrient dense. And, she's very extreme in that, but she will outspokenly talk about that too, like nutritional professionals, health professionals coming on here and saying everything in moderation and balance, and how can we justify that when these foods have so much research to suggest that they're harmful to us? How can we justify eating foods in moderation that are so harmful to the body? Why would we do that? Why would we do that? That's her argument. And she's not wrong. I think a lot of this normalcy that we've kind of created culturally around these foods, it is what perpetuates that. It's so normal for us to be consuming these foods, just as it's so normal to be consuming alcohol. And yet alcohol now continues to reflect as being carcinogenic, as being really harmful to our health. Yet we still do it and we justify it. So it's really interesting. And I think about this a lot because I think it's a really interesting position that I'm in. I try to be very cautious of it and aware of it, but there's arguments on either side. And at which point do we decide that there has to be acknowledgement of the fact that sugar and processed foods, and so ultra processed foods, I want to be sure I speak properly with that, ultra processed foods have impact on our health, and we can't excuse that, right? That has to be something that we acknowledge, that we're aware of, in order to stop this epidemic, these chronic disease epidemics that exist, both in mental and physical health capacities. So thank you very much for tuning in. I truly don't even know how long this was, I'll be completely honest, because I keep getting disrupted. So I hope that you enjoyed. I love these episodes, like I said, and I think that they're really important, and they give me an opportunity to just speak and discuss and kind of tell you a little bit more about what's going on in my world and my life and what's on my mind. And you always have the opportunity to message me if you have questions or suggestions and more. So I hope you have a wonderful month of November. I will see you all in December for the next episode of Family Dinner. And in the meantime, be well.